Welcome to the Blogger Genius Podcast, brought to you by MiloTree. Here's your host, Jillian Leslie.
Hello, friends. Welcome back to the show. Before I start, I want to announce to all of those new and excited bloggers out there that if you are looking for an easy way to turn your blog into a real business where you can make real money, I want you to sign up for our 6-week MiloTree new blogger coaching group. It's going to start March 2nd. I couldn't be more excited. So I'm leading the group with David, who, if you follow along, you know he is my husband, my business partner. He's a tech extraordinaire. So we're going to lead it together. And you are going to learn all about the tech you need for blogging, the way you need to think about monetizing, how to attract an audience, how to get traffic to your site, what the different social media networks are all about. We're going to touch on email marketing. Really, you will, not only will it be fun and interesting and inspiring, but you will leave with a blueprint on how to turn your blog into a real business and how to change your life. That's what we hope to inspire you to do. If you are interested, please head to milotree.com/group. It's super easy. Please sign up. Please join us. I want to get to know you better, and I want to be able to hear about your business and hear about your dreams. Also, if you have any questions, email me, Jillian@milotree.com. And if you want to get on a call with me, just let me know. I'd be happy to talk to you. I love hearing from you. Okay, for today's podcast, this is very exciting. I have my very good friend, Elisa Meredith, on the show. Elisa is a Pinterest expert. She works at Tailwind. If you haven't heard, Pinterest is making changes to the platform. If Pinterest is important to your business, you must listen to this episode. And even if you had tuned in to the Pinterest and Tailwind, they did a Facebook Live together to talk about this. One thing that Elisa's really wanting to do is to clarify any misconceptions that came out of that Facebook Live. So we go deep and we talk all about what Pinterest is thinking, what Tailwind is thinking, and how you should be thinking about all of these changes. And they're not bad. It's just like everything on the internet, it's always changing. So without further delay, here is my interview with Elisa Meredith. Elisa, welcome back to the show.
Jillian, you know I'm always glad to be here.
So we have so much to discuss.
We do, and I'm really glad that we got the curly hair conversation out of the way.
We did.
We have to do it.
We always do it. So if anybody's interested in what we are sharing in terms of best practices for curly hair, just reach out to me at Jillian@milotree.com.
That's right.
And you are my guide when it comes to curly hair.
Oh, so we are on this journey together.
Okay. All right. We're even talking about making products. So stay tuned.
That's right. Our next career. Yes.
Exactly. Is curly hair entrepreneurs.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Okay. So let's talk about new changes both on Pinterest and Tailwind. Mm-hmm. Okay. So you guys did a live Q&A where you had a representative from Pinterest. They were talking about what they're looking for. Yep. And you guys were talking about how as a company, you're there to support the publisher, the blogger, as Pinterest makes these changes.
Yes, absolutely.
And my biggest takeaway from what you said is Pinterest is now focusing on new pins. They want new pins on the platform. It used to be you'd make your pin and then your job was kind of to repin it over and over again and make sure it's kind of getting in front of people. And Pinterest is saying, nope, what we want is new, fresh stuff showing up on the platform.
Yeah. And I think it's important to think about why that might be. So what precipitated this, and it is an algorithm change. Like you hear all the time, like, oh, because of the new algorithm change, and you wonder, how do people know that? But this one, they are actually telling us now, right? They told us in that live that this is actually a change in the algorithm. So what's happening is that they noticed that pinners, users, were engaging more with this fresh content. And we should define what fresh content is.
Yes.
Because there's a lot of confusion about that as well. So fresh content is an image that Pinterest has never seen before.
Or video.
Yes, right.
Okay. So this means, here's a question. Is fresh content the same photograph with different words on it? New overlays?
Yeah, it could be, right? So we talked a little bit about that, like what makes an image fresh? Can you just put a filter on it? Can you just shift the image a few pixels to fool the algorithm so it reads it as new? Like, don't go for the shortcuts, because what Pinterest is saying that we are actually seeing that people engage more with actual fresh content. So think about what makes it fresh from a user's perspective. Like I had somebody send me some examples, and it was they use the same background image and everything for their podcast. They just change out the podcast number. And no, that is not what you would consider a fresh pin. Like technically it's a different image,
Right.
but what is the average viewer going to think? Are they going to see the difference and find that inspiring and interesting? No, they're not. So you have to think about that with your own image. So changing the text overlay could absolutely work, but you probably want to expand on that as well. So give people like a different focus, a different angle, like completely change the focus of the image if you can.
Right. And just even in terms of Google, if you are a blogger, you know this. Google does not like duplicate content, meaning you can't take a blog post and copy the blog post and make a second blog post. In fact, Google will kind of ding you for that.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think Pinterest is not to that same level, right? So I think what a lot of people heard yesterday or thought that they heard is that you can never save the same image ever again after you saved it once because it's not fresh content. Well, you know what? Technically, you're right. It's not fresh content. However, that was not the message. The message is to shift your focus and your time from pure curation and repetition to adding more fresh content.
Got it.
So yeah.
Would you say, for example, like let's say I've got this great pin and I love it and I just want to repin it, that because the algorithm is changing, it might just be that Pinterest will notice, oh, we've seen this before on the platform. We're not going to give it a lot of priority and a lot of juice.
Yeah, so that could happen. Now, we did ask specifically on the live and in conversations beforehand. You can imagine there are a lot of those too. Does this mean then that I can't save the same image to more than one board? And this is a lot of something that a lot of people didn't get the point of. So I want to try to communicate it more clearly. No, not at all. So please do continue to share your image to a few relevant boards. And that's the key, right? So when you go into Tailwind and you start scheduling to more than one board, you're going to see recommendations at a certain level. Like, you know, if you're going to save to more than this many boards, you might want to create a new image. But absolutely, you can share the same image to more than one board. It gives more context to Pinterest about what that image is about. So yes, absolutely.
Now, do you think I would get in trouble if I shared it to 20 boards?
You know, I think it's less about the number, although Pinterest has said 10 or fewer.
Okay, that's good to know.
And the guideline is there because we want relevant boards.
Right.
So give it more context. So if it's like, sort of kind of relevant, but not really, well, make a new image. Change that text on the image to be more relevant to that other board you want to save it to, or that other few boards you want to save it to. And you're going to do a lot better with the distribution.
What about, I had heard that it matters, let's say, the first board I pin it to.
Yeah, so we're going back to the importance or the priority that may be given to fresh pins.
Right.
So when you save that first pin to that first board, for the very first time, right? And this is something that they've been talking about for a long time, right? The importance of that first board you save it to. That is the strongest connection. So I used to save all of my blog posts to Elisa's blog board, right? That's terrible.
Right.
I should be saving it to something that has similar keywords to what I'm using in the pin description, in the board description, and the pin title, and the content on my page.
I like that. Okay, so that is a big takeaway. Be very intentional about the first board you're pinning that pin to, because it's giving a lot of signals to the Pinterest algorithm.
Yeah, and to every subsequent board you save it to as well.
But should I prioritize them in terms of relevancy?
Yes.
So for example,
I would save to the most relevant board first, like you said.
Yep.
But just be honest with yourself. Does this pin really belong on this board? If it doesn't, like, remake it so that it does. But if you really want to save it.
If you've got Elisa's blog posts, would you pin in that last?
Might not be last, but it certainly would not be first.
Okay.
Like, I don't know that anyone's keeping track of, oh, this was second, so it gets a little like, I don't know that it's that sensitive. But yeah, certainly wouldn't be my first anymore.
Okay.
My bad. Right.
And let's talk about this idea that, like, Pinterest is not out to get you.
No.
And Pinterest is not going to say, oh my God, they recommend you pin it to at most 10 boards. I've pinned it to 11 boards. My account is going to get flagged.
Right. And I think Lucy really explained that pretty well when she said there are a lot of factors that go into why someone could be reported for or suspended for spam. Like, they're not out to get you, like you said.
And there aren't people behind the scenes. Like, I would argue that even the engineers at Pinterest do not fully understand the ramifications of the algorithm, because there's so many different situations. Like, they're giving weight to different elements, but who knows how your pins are going to be interpreted by the algorithm. So again, there are no people back there who are like counting how many pins you're pinning and how, these are all pieces to a very complicated algorithm.
Oh yeah. Yeah. And Lucy was really clear about that too. Like, yes, these changes have started to occur where relevancy and recency are both being taken into account, and you're probably going to see relevancy start to edge, to become more and more important, because that is changing over time, like you said. Like, you can't just flip a switch and have it completely change.
Okay, so of relevancy and recency, let's explain or define what those mean.
Yeah. Okay. So if you think about relevancy, has a lot of different angles. So try not to get too complicated, but if you think about relevancy to a search, right? Mm-hmm. So if you're searching for curly hair products, you're going to see pins that are relevant to that. So you're going to see images that are about curly hair. You're going to see text on image about curly hair. You're going to see it in the title, the description, the board description. There's a lot of things that go into a search result, but just talking about relevancy, that's where it really counts.
Okay.
So making sure that your content is actually what you present it to be, and keeping those signals consistent from your boards to your pins to the content on your website will help with relevancy. Kind of another thing to think about with relevancy is relevancy to the platform of Pinterest itself. So whereas on Facebook, you can talk about problems and issues, on Pinterest, you want to be more inspirational and aspirational. That's just more what people want, which makes your pin more engaging and more relevant to the platform and the way people use it.
Okay. And now let's talk about recency.
Yeah, so recency, that's the fresh pins thing, right?
Yep.
So it's fresh content is going to start to bubble up more in the results, which is not to say at all that your older content that's still relevant and up to date won't still surface. It will, but all things considered, if you have two pieces where they're both of equal relevancy, which, like I said, there's a lot that goes into it, and I don't know all the factors, but if Pinterest says, okay, these are equal relevancy, but this pin is fresher than this pin, the fresher pin is more likely to get more distribution.
Absolutely. Okay. That makes sense. Now, what about this though?
Yeah.
It's Halloween and I make some pins, and I remember it used to be that a couple months before I'm pinning those pins with my Halloween recipes or Halloween crafts. Now is it, I want it recent. So do I want to wait and not necessarily pin them 3 months before? Because it used to be that it took a while for it to percolate, gain some traction.
Well, I think that kind of discounts the way people use Pinterest. So part of the reason for pinning that early is that people are actually planning ahead that early. So it's not like I got to get it out there so it gets worked into the feed. It's more like, when do people actually start searching for this topic? That's when my pin needs to go out.
Okay.
So it's like maybe a shift in the reason why you're doing it, possibly, but not a shift in the time frame. You're still going to want to do it early. And that really brings up another good point about relevancy. Like, what are people searching for now? Like, if you're in the US, you have access to trends.pinterest.com. Look and see, when should I be pinning these certain things? That's going to be more relevant at that time.
Okay, so it's not as much about kind of feeding. I would have thought of it back in the day, or not back in the day, like a month ago, that it's almost like you're seeding the platform with your content. And you're saying, don't think about it that way as much as think about the audience. And people start planning for Halloween a couple months before, start, gathering ideas.
Yep. Yeah. So I think they say like typically it's 30 to 60 days ahead, but the Pinterest Possibilities Planner, got a little alliteration there, gives a really good visual of when these searches start trending up. And some of them are ridiculous. Like, I think Christmas starts in June or something. It's you do want to know the trends for your content.
Okay, now what if, though, let's talk in terms of board, like pin descriptions, pin titles. Like, what if I start changing those up? And not necessarily the actual pin. Does that count?
Nope.
Yes. No. So it doesn't. Okay.
No, it doesn't. No. So that is key to understand success on Pinterest today and in the future. What is fresh content? Fresh content is a new image.
Now here's my next question, though. Kind of the inverse. I make a new pin, and I now want to pin it into 6 relevant boards. Do I need to change the title and the description as it goes into these 6 boards, or can I keep the same title and description?
Okay, so short answer, you could keep it. Longer answer is you'll probably do better if you change it. And here's why, right? Because what Pinterest is looking at is consistency between the content on your website, all the stuff on your pin, which includes title and description and image, text on image, and your Pinterest board. So even though they might be kind of similar and all relevant to like 4 or 5 different boards, is it possible you could make it like a better fit with the board by changing the title or description? Yeah, probably.
And does that also then feed more information to Pinterest to round out what this pin is about?
Yeah, it seems like it could. So I think where we've gotten some questions, and I think where the even bigger possibilities are, is when you create a new image for that same URL. So let's say when you post a blog post, you always create 5 different images.
Okay.
So then the question is, do I have to make a new title and description for every single pin? You don't have to, but you're probably going to want to, right? Because every pin is going to be unique in some way.
Right.
And then it's going to have a different focus, a different goal, or present things in a different way that might benefit from a new title and description.
Okay. So again, it is about more personalization. Is that a good way to, like, that if, for example, I make an Instapot recipe that's for Christmas and I pin it to my Christmas board, in that description, I want to talk more about Christmas. If I pin it to my Instapot board, I might want to talk more from the angle of an Instapot.
Right, exactly.
And so in the images, if I have some images that focus on more like Christmas, that's where that one's going to go more likely, or at least first. And then the Instapot, if I'm looking at the Instapot, that's, in that image, we're going to kind of, it's like tailoring.
You got it. And that plays into the relevancy as well.
Imagine growing your Instagram followers with no work. Highly engaged followers. Now imagine it with Pinterest, Facebook, YouTube. How about new email subscribers? Seriously, no work. This is all possible if you install the MiloTree pop-up on your blog. David, my husband, and I started our blog, Catch My Party, in 2009. We've since grown it into the largest party ideas site on the web with millions of page views per month. We did it with hard work and our secret weapon, our MiloTree pop-up, which David built for us. We've grown our Pinterest followers to over 1.3 million and our Instagram followers to over 164,000. And right now, 8,000 other bloggers just like you are using MiloTree to grow their businesses. With MiloTree, you can focus on growing one platform or switch between several. But here is the important thing. If you aren't converting your visitors into followers, subscribers, and customers, you're honestly wasting your own traffic. Make this asset, your visitors, work for you. Since we're bloggers, we get bloggers. So we've optimized MiloTree like crazy. It's a snap to install. It won't slow your site down. It's Google friendly on mobile, and it's so darn cute. You can even add animated sparkles to your pop-up if you like. Sign up now and get your first 30 days for free. Please pause this episode and head to milotree.com to sign up. I know you will thank me. As a bonus, once you sign up, I'm going to send you weekly actionable business tips to help you grow your business. I've been at this a long time and I have a lot to share. Remember, your scarcest resource is not money, it's time. So let MiloTree free up time for you so you can focus on the other important parts of your business. So what are you waiting for? Hit pause, head to MiloTree, and sign up today. Now let's, though, talk about blog posts, because this, I think, is really interesting. I've got a blog post that I posted 5 years ago.
Yeah.
Does Pinterest care if I make new images for that blog post? Is that new content?
It is new content.
Ooh. Do you think eventually Pinterest is going to go, we're going to look at the date of the blog post and go, it's 5 years old, it's not as relevant?
I really couldn't speculate on that. All I do know is that we asked specifically, is there some kind of preference given to brand new URLs with new images, or is it just the new images? And what they said is the algorithm does not favor brand new URLs. It's the image.
That is so, okay, that is a huge takeaway, because
right? Yeah.
It's not Pinterest is not saying go make a bunch of new recipes.
Right. You don't have to blog 4 times a day in order to have great content for Pinterest.
I love that.
Thank goodness.
I love that. But
too.
I mean, again, like with Google, though, you need to be updating that blog post or creating new blog posts for Google to see that as new content. Like Google gets mad if you just take that blog post and update the date, for example. Or Google doesn't. Yeah. Google doesn't really get mad, but Google doesn't care as much.
Personality, it would get mad.
It would get mad, but Google is much more about, oh yeah, you want me to think this is a new post? Then you better prove it to me by updating that post.
Right. Yep. So I mean, we completely understand that this is a big shift for people, right? So whereas in the past you could just keep resharing and resharing and resharing and do a lot of content curation that didn't require a lot of creation, and now Pinterest is saying, no, we want you to create more. And I understand that is difficult to hear, but when taken in context with what you just said, it's way easier than working with Google.
Absolutely. And again, you can hire this out. Like there are people on Fiverr, for example, who will make images for you, and it's not that expensive. So think about finding somebody on Fiverr or Upwork. Like if this is intimidating and making your head explode.
We don't want that.
Yeah, like there are ways to be strategic about this. And if Pinterest is driving you traffic and making you money, it might be worth investing a little bit in having somebody make some pins for you, put together some templates, and see if you can do it that way. Now, let's talk, though, about pin best practices and what you at Tailwind are doing to help me make the best, most clickable, most eye candy-ish pins?
Oh, well, we were just talking about this. So we have this thing called the Pinterest Toolkit, and
I'm going to have a link to it in the show notes.
Okay, great. And it's just bit.ly pin toolkit from Tailwind, all lowercase, no spaces. It's completely free. So when you get in there, what you're going to see is that we have a pin checklist. We have a guide to writing great descriptions, but most exciting I think for me and most people are the templates.
Yes, and they're really pretty, by the way. You guys did a great job.
Thank you. So they're in Canva, and you can add those to your own accounts, and then you can edit them however you want. So we have, we just started doing this. So we have a collection from December, one from January. I'm working on the February one. But what's really cool about it is that we have built them all based on Pinterest best practices. So really dived into the Pinterest Academy. So especially on the January collection, when you get it in Canva, there's like a little notes button, and you can actually click on that note and find out like, why did I choose this design? Like, what kind of trend or what kind of benefit are we pulling into this pin, and why might you want to use something like this? So they're all like different industries. So we have like health and beauty. We have, what else do we have? I'm completely drawing a blank. We have blogger. We have a couple other ones, but you could, in theory, use any of them for any industry. Just mix them up. Like, obviously, you don't want to use them exactly like they are there, or we'll start having the exact same pin show up on Pinterest, which is not ideal.
Right.
But we are actually working with the creative team at Pinterest on another set, which will be coming out soon, that will bake in some really cool things that they are finding are actually working. So those will be baked into the templates that you can use.
Now, can you share any of these high-level tips? Like, for example, are big fonts better than small font, or like are sans serif fonts better than serif fonts? Are there any things where you go, wow, that's really weird, but people click on that?
Well, here's one that surprised me, is the recommendation to add a person.
Ooh, really? Because I would have shied away from that.
Yeah, exactly. Because we were told for a long time that didn't work. Well, that apparently is not the case anymore. I mean, trends change. Of course it's going to change. So, and as far as text goes, like, the biggest thing is make sure it's legible, because
on mobile.
On mobile, yes, absolutely. So watch for that. Watch the curly fonts. I mean, Pinterest can't really read those for SEO. So if you're going to use them like for an accent piece of text. But the bigger thing is, what are people able to see?
Now, what about things like, do you guys know, fewer words, more words, colors?
So fewer words for sure. Some of the things, and I highly recommend you check out the Pinterest Academy, because it has so many great things in there. One of the suggestions was to use texture, to use monochrome, which I hardly ever see that, and I think that's part of the point of it. Use a pop of color.
Okay. Now, what do you mean by texture?
So, like, for instance, okay, I just got into acrylic pouring. I don't know if you've tried that, but it's so fun. It's beautiful.
Wait,
so
what?
Basically, you're taking watered down paints. You mix it with a medium and some water. You pour it into a cup, then you dump it on a canvas, and you move it around, and it's beautiful.
Really?
It's like, you look like an artist, and you dumped paint on a canvas.
Wow.
So,
okay.
I took a picture of that, like you can take a picture of like different areas of that, or if you see like a pile of rocks or sand or bark.
Got it. And
like
using
different textures.
Using that as like a background.
Yeah. Yep.
Interesting. Okay.
And patterns too. So patterns draw the eye. So if you see something cool like a staircase or a fence line or something like that, or like the one we have that works really well is like donuts. Like, I think it's 2 lines of 3 donuts on a pin. That pin does really well. And it's because we like patterns. Like, our eyes are drawn to them.
That is so interesting.
Yeah. Yeah. And then there's like, try to add a little mystery.
Ooh,
like,
yes. Like
so
a reason to click.
A reason to click. But even in the image itself, like, to a mysterious doorway, right? So, yeah. So there's a lot you can do to improve the quality of your pins, and we try to break those into all the templates.
And you'll also explain why or what that element is for?
Yeah. So especially, I don't think I did it in the December collection, but the January I added in a lot of notes, like here's why we did this, and yeah.
Interesting. Oh, those are such great tips. The using people, that goes against everything I know, even like when you think of book covers, and it's like the female protagonist and they never show a face because they want you to be able to put yourself in that role.
Yep. Yeah. And I think that still to some extent proves true. Like if I wrote a book and I wanted to advertise it on Pinterest, I would not put a big picture of my face on a pin, because like people don't care about me.
No.
They care about what I'm going to do for them.
Right.
Which is great. I love that about it. But a person using your product or service in a photo is really powerful.
Yes, because we are kind of herd-ish,
Yeah,
like she looks really happy with that, wearing the bracelet. Maybe I would be really happy.
Life.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Okay.
Yeah, we will do it.
That does make sense. Now let's talk just basically pin size.
Okay.
Has that changed?
No. So the recommended like standard pin is 2 to 3.
2 to 3. Okay.
So 1,000 pixels by 1,500 or equivalent, but I think the minimum they're saying is 1,000 by 1,500 now.
Okay.
So then on the higher end, if you don't want your pin to get cut off in the feed, it's 1 to 2.1. So that'd be like 1,000 by 2,100.
Okay.
And some people swear by that length, so it's definitely worth trying.
Interesting, because I'm going to tell you that we've gone back to kind of longer pins.
Okay.
And I think we've had some success with that.
That's cool.
But, that's like between you and me and whoever else happens to be
just
listening.
Between us.
Yeah, just,
friends.
this is exactly. So again, what I would say about that is definitely experiment. Like test. And so let's talk about, I want to touch on 2 more things.
Okay.
I want to touch on the number of pins you should be pinning per day, and then talk about like that there really is no such thing as Pinterest jail.
Pinterest jail. Well, I think there actually is.
Do you? All right, let's talk about it.
Of course there is. So people get suspended all the time or their websites get blocked. So that's Pinterest jail.
Okay.
But as far as like, if you pin 69 and a half pins, you go to jail. That's just not how it works.
Okay.
So that was something that Lucy was clear about too on the Facebook Live, that there are a lot of factors that go into it.
Got it. So if in fact, the recommendation is like up to 25 pins a day, if you pin 27 pins, that is not going to ban your account. If they recommend up to 10 boards to put, to pin a pin into, and you do 12, you're not going to Pinterest jail.
Right. So remember, Lucy was like, we don't give numbers.
Right. Right.
There's a lot that goes into it. And besides, it would be a recipe for cheating. So just something to think about, like, let's say you're pinning 40 pins a day. Let's say it's the same image that nobody's engaging with.
Yep.
Well,
Yep.
that's too many pins.
Yep.
Right? Not because of a number, but because of the way that you're doing it. So
Yes.
that's really important. Another thing I really want to clear up, in Tailwind's Smart Guide, which is what we put in place to help people stay within these new best practices, we stated that our most successful pinners generally pin between 15 and 25 pins per day. I just want to make it really, really clear that we are not limiting people to 25 pins a day. That seems to be a big point of confusion from the live, and I apologize if that was not clear or if it's not clear in the dashboard, but that is not a limit.
Got it. Okay. And I want to say, so for us, I was explaining this to you offline. So, you know, our site is Catch My Party. That's our first business. And Pinterest is huge for us. Now, we have a lot of what's called user-generated content, people uploading photos of their parties, and we pin a lot of those photos, and we make collages and things. So we're lucky in that we have a lot of content to pin. So we
Yeah,
pin a
that's
lot,
true.
but we are pinning a lot of new content. So therefore, for us, we've been pinning like, I don't know, 100 pins a day. Right now, we're going down to like 75 pins a day. And what I'm going to do is watch our
Yeah.
analytics, see if, see how Pinterest is responding to what we're doing and adjust accordingly. But again,
Yes.
our situation is different than everybody else. Nobody else has exactly what we do or does exactly the way we, does it the way we do it. So we're going to try stuff and experiment and see how it works for us.
Excellent. Yeah, and that's exactly what you should do. So I think a lot of people just heard something a lot more drastic.
Yeah, and heard hard numbers,
Yeah, exactly. So we do have recommendations in there. We do have things in place to kind of slow down overpinning, but it's you can choose to ignore it if you want to.
Exactly. So let's talk about now what Tailwind is doing to help. Like I kind of think you're like the best friend who's sitting next to you, who's saying like, I'm not going to be mad at you. Like, I'm just going to give you some guidelines. Again, what you just said, which is if you can totally ignore it. It doesn't mean like you guys have some special information that, oh no, you're going to go report that person to Pinterest.
Yeah, we're not.
If they violate something, but you're just kind of saying, here are some guidelines. Here are some guardrails.
That's right. Exactly. That's guardrails is a great word for it. And like the numbers thing, we're going to kind of shy away from that as well because we're meeting with Pinterest on a regular basis and these things are going to change. But that's not something that you need to worry about because it's going to be in your dashboard. And if we see something where it's like, oh, you're kind of edging towards like putting yourself at unnecessary risk, we're going to tell you. But again, like you said, you can ignore it if you want to.
Right. So again, it's not like you're some sort of parent or you have all this insight and that, my account's going to get flagged. It's just that you're saying, hey, we know what best practices are. We see enough accounts. We're in conversation with Pinterest. So if you want to stay safe, just pay attention to what we are noticing about your account.
Yeah, exactly right. So can I address something about Smart Loop?
Please.
Okay, great. So something else that people thought that they heard was that you can never share the same image to the same board ever again. That is not at all true. Unfortunately, Lucy stated that as well. So there are perfectly good reasons why you would share the same pin to the same board again, which is what Smart Loop does, right?
So could you give some examples? What is the best use case for Smart Loop?
Yeah, so you might want to do it seasonally. So if you know that a certain pin image does really well around a certain time of year, make sure it goes out again next year. Then you don't have to think about it. Or if you know, okay, here's a piece of content that does really well when it goes out, and I want to share it maybe twice a year or so that possibly my new followers will see it. Absolutely. Go ahead. It's like that very much mimics natural behavior on Pinterest. So if you think about how you might use Pinterest as a user, if you saw that pin in the feed, you might be inclined to save it yourself once a year or twice a year if you happened upon it and it was engaging to you. So that's the key, right? Like if it's engaging, like if you have found or you think you're going to find that it's engaging to people, you can repin it like that. But of course, you do want to watch your Smart Loop analytics and make sure that you are still getting engagement on those pins. And Smart Loop analytics to me are like the easiest thing in the world to see. Like, what's my average? And, oh, okay, this one's below average. It's out,
Right. So should you be curating your Smart Loops?
Oh, yeah. Yeah. And I mean, even like, especially if you see a piece of content is doing really well, create new images for that piece of content. And again, like it might be different for other people, but to me, Smart Loop is like the best place to get the analytics on a pin or even a piece of content. It's like, wow, every time this goes out, it gets 14 shares. That's way higher than my usual. I'm gonna create more images to see if I can get more juice out of that one piece of content.
So you're saying use it also for research?
Oh, totally. Yeah.
I mean, that's
Yeah, and if you're like, oh, this pin used to do well, but now that I've shared it out a few times, it's not getting the engagement, then like take it out, put a new image in.
That's so yes. And so what else? Like how are you guys thinking about this going forward?
Yeah, so for now, what we're doing is we're kind of keeping an eye on people's activity and like you said, giving kind of guardrails and advice about how to get better distribution and success for your Pinterest and to kind of avoid that unnecessary risk. Over time, and you're probably seeing it already, little tips to help you get more and to create fresh content easier. But you're going to start to see more of that.
Okay, so you guys are going to be kind of like coaches.
Yeah, so coaches, and we're also looking into ways to help people create fresh content faster and easier.
Got it. So in addition to the templates, like you can expect that you guys are thinking about making pins like in an easier way, I guess.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Now let's touch on video.
Okay.
So Enid from Pinterest came to the AdThrive conference and talked all about video. That video is huge and all that stuff. What are you seeing?
Okay, so mixed. And I think part of it is that my video skills are not good. But what I found, and I was talking to our Pinterest ad rep too, is that to teach someone something in a video is where you can get some real success. So we tried this because we were doing like kind of talking head snippet kind of videos, and they just were not working, which makes sense really. But they were easy to make, so we did. But one that we're doing right now is like the recipe for our perfect pin. And I thought if we played into that part of like recipes being super useful on Pinterest, well, could that translate to video? So we have like one part inspiring image, one part beautiful title, 2 lines, awesome description. I mean, this is not what we used. I can't remember straight out what exactly we used, but it was that idea of like walking people through how to build a really great pin, which is like, it's informational. It teaches a little something. It's kind of inspiring, but it still requires that they click to get more information.
Got it. Okay, because that's the piece that I think is the trickiest, which is that supposedly people will watch on Pinterest your video. And especially, again, like Enid said, no sound is really, people aren't listening.
Right,
you want text overlays, but they're getting engagement, but the trick is how to get the click.
Yeah, and I think like there's something to be said just for building brand awareness, and videos absolutely stand out in the feed and they're kind of prioritized in certain searches, which is cool. But like you, I do want the clicks. So yeah, I want people to watch it on Pinterest, but I do want them to click too, obviously. So it's kind of the same idea of infographics. So infographics can get a ton of engagement, so many repins, but a lot of times they don't get clicks, and that's because you've given it all away.
Yep. Yeah. So it's like you want to, and this is always challenging, but you want to add that element of mystery, that element of like, what's behind door number 1? How do I, go find the rest of the recipe, or what does it look like? I need to click through to see how it turned out, or those kinds of things.
I mean, you can even show all that. Like for Catch My Party, you could show everything that you're doing, but in order for someone to recreate that, they need to have a materials list, right?
Right.
So you're not gonna put that in your pin description. That doesn't make sense. So they're gonna click through to your website, but in the meantime, they've consumed this video on Pinterest. They've learned a little something, but they still need you.
Right. Exactly. Yeah. And so do you feel like Pinterest is still prioritizing video?
I mean, I don't have any kind of inside scoop on that, but I can just tell you what I see.
Okay.
And that is,
Okay. Yep.
Yes. Do you
Yep.
see that too?
I do. I do. And Enid had said this.
Yeah.
But it's, for us too, it's harder to make. And especially if it doesn't lead to clicks, that's where we're like, ooh, how do we crack? We haven't cracked that nut yet.
Yeah. Well, I think there's a nut to be cracked though.
I do. And I've heard that people who do it have done very, very well.
Yeah.
So we're going to
Our
keep
click-through rate
trying.
on that particular one is good.
Okay.
But I think we had to learn that you can't just tease. Like you actually have to teach.
Okay. And yes. And I think that Enid had said there's a sweet spot, something like 30 seconds to a minute. There are some sizes, like 1-to-1 seems to be a good size. And, so there are some fundamental basics if you're going to think about doing video to really read up on those requirements or what is performing best. Well, this is good. This is really good. I'm so glad that you agreed to come on and to dispel some of the fear around changes.
Well, I'm going to be completely honest, Jillian, and tell you that when we started hearing about the changes that were coming up, we were a little freaked out too. It's a big mind shift, but the more that we learned about it and what actually was behind it and what the recommendations were, the more we were like, oh, you know what? This makes sense. It's going to make a better platform, and it wasn't as scary. But I completely understand why it would be scary at first, and I absolutely encourage anybody who has concerns about Smart Loop, about number of pins per day, whatever. Please reach out to us at help@tailandapp.com if you want to help.
Yeah, and if you think about it, I like what you just said. If the platform gets even better and more people come to the platform, there is more traffic for everybody.
Yes.
The pie grows. And we want to grow, even though, again, it might be a little more work up front. If the pie is growing, that's more eyeballs on your content.
Exactly.
So I totally get that. Well, Elisa, thank you so much for coming back on the show and for really digging deep into this. And it'll be interesting to see. I mean, I'm excited actually to go to Pinterest and see all these new fresh pins.
Oh, yeah, me too.
Because I love it. I love it. All right. Well, thank you again. And I know you will be back again for, a part 4, part 5 or whatever.
Excellent. Looking forward to it, Jillian.
So I hope this episode gave you more clarity on what Pinterest is looking for, clarity on what Tailwind is doing. For us at Catch My Party, we're still going to be pinning a lot of pins. We're just going to make sure that a lot of those pins are new content. And for you new bloggers, please join us in our new blogger coaching group. It is starting in just a couple days on March 2nd. So please come along. I promise you will get so much out of this, and you will leave with a roadmap on how to turn your blog into a viable money-making business. So please head to milotree.com/group. You don't have a lot of time, so sign up today. If you've got questions, please, I'm here to answer them. I'll get on a call with you. I'd love to chat with you. But we really feel like our job is to empower entrepreneurs, and that's what we hope to turn you into. And I will see you again here next week.